Welcome to another Funky Friday at 5. This is the 24th. And if you'll notice, looking at me here in this environment, we're filming this in the opposite side of the room because today we're going to, among other things, talk about Yasujiro Ozu. And I wanted to have a very good picture, better picture, wide, little wider frame, because Yasujiro Ozu is one of the greatest filmmakers since the birth of cinema. And he was born in 1903, December 12th, and died on his birthday, December 12th, in 1963. He made 59 movies. I really love Ozu. When you love an artist, when it's beyond just somebody that's just good or just entertaining or even just edifying, this is more than that for me, and so it's very special. It also makes it hard to talk about, and I've been watching his films for close to 30 years, I think, if I have that correct, and I've read a lot of literature on his work, and I've even gotten to meet, hold on here. I got to meet this filmmaker, Yasujiro Ozu, who did Eros Massacre, a classic, new wave Japanese film, the late 60s, and many other wonderful films. He wrote this book called Ozu's Anti-Cinema, and I got him to, I got to meet him and got him to sign here, like so. I do not have in front of me Donald Ritchie's book on Ozu, and David Bordwell's book is not among my favorites, but I have Schrader. We'll get to all that stuff in a second. But what I want to do is, my original idea is to follow up on talking about depiction of two people in relationship, two people in conversation. And, and I began thinking about one of the greatest scenes in all of cinema, which is from Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice. And I thought, well, why don't I just do a whole episode, the best that I can, homely, humble as it is, on Ozu himself. I mean, of course, I can't cover everything, but if I started with just this scene out of context, this scene in the Japanese no play from late spring from 1949, one of his top films, I think that would be insufficient. I could talk about the scene, and I wanted to include that scene because it's a non-verbal scene. It's a scene where it's looks and glances, to quote a noted film scholar discussing Hitchcock, although this is not in any way like Hitchcock, but not communicating like I am now talking to you, but communicating through looks, glances, shots. Off the top of my head, Ozu invented a completely sui generis style in cinema. His own way of shooting environments on the ground, of the tatami mat. He even invented his own cameras to shoot low. He invented his own stopwatch, created a stopwatch just to time every shot meticulously. So when we're dealing with Ozu, we're dealing with a filmmaker who is very close to ballet or modern dance in music. And Susan Sontag called him the Jane Austen, I believe, of Japan. His plots are very domestic, and they concern the family. And there are also there's many noteworthy things about them, but among many other things, he avoids big action or obvious action. And so, it's kind of what he would call what certain traditions, spiritual traditions would call mu, which is what is on his cemetery, is Mu, the character of Mu. MU. And so, people going about their business, remarrying, marrying, birth, death, beautiful simplicity, precision. But let's jump into this Vin Vendors movie. He made a movie on the anniversary of Ozu's passing called Tokyo Gala. And I'm going to play a good bit length of this film because Wim Wenders speaks really beautiful English, even though he's German. And he talks about why he loves Ozu, and he uses the actual credit from Tokyo Story over under his narration. And then he shows the first scenes of Tokyo Story. Shushu Ryu it plays an elderly couple, and you can get a sense. So I thought about playing this opening, this documentary. Then we'll jump into the Japanese No scene from late spring. Another scene, I'm going to show a scene from Green Tea, the flavor of green tea over rice, about marriage. Beautiful, again, somewhat nonverbal. And we'll jump into it. Let's see what happens. I'm excited. Talk about something I love is kind of a treat. So let's see here what happens.
If in our century there were still sacred things, if there were something like a sacred treasure of the cinema, then for me that would have to be the work of the Japanese director Yasujiro Ozu. He made 54 films. Silent films in the 20s, black and white films in the 30s and 40s, and finally color films until his death on December 12, 1963, on his 60th birthday. With extreme economy of means and reduced to but the bare essentials, Ozu's films again and again tell the same simple story, always of the same people in the same city, Tokyo. This chronicle, spanning nearly 40 years, depicts the transformation of life in Japan. Ozu's films deal with the slow deterioration of the Japanese family, and thereby with the deterioration of a national identity. But they do so not by pointing with dismay at what is new, Western or American, but by lamenting with an unindulged sense of nostalgia the loss taking place at the same time. As thoroughly Japanese as they are, these films are at the same time universal. In them I've been able to recognize all families in all the countries of the world, as well as my parents, my brother, and myself. For me, never before and never again since has the cinema been so close to its essence and its purpose, to present an image of man in our century, a usable, true, and valid image, in which he not only recognizes himself, but from which, above all, he may learn about himself.
You see him here, classical Ozu shots. He loves to shoot objects in environments like this. They are not traditional establishing shots. It's easy to mistake them for such, but it's a totally other thing, what he's doing.
Anyway, Ozu's work does not need my praise, and such a sacred treasure of the cinema could only reside in the realm of the imagination.
Okay, so that move in a little bit here. That was oh boy, I don't know where to begin. That's his introduction, very reverent, very very respectful, because that's the kind of territory we're in. And so this idea of daily life, you saw the elderly couple there, that's going to be mirrored later in that film. I think I'm going to dive into the late spring now, if I may. Talk a little bit. Have to try to figure things out. We're dealing with a lot of technology here. We have this is a one-man band here, so bear with me. I think that I'm trying to think on the fly here. So I've seen all of his films, including the early films and the silent films. I happen to love most of all his color films. So because of what he does with color, his last films. I'm gonna make sure I got. All this crap here. You have to switch and.
行かなきゃ行かないで心配だし、いざ行くとなると、やっぱりなんだか。
Right. This is the greatest scene ever made in film. That's Suzuki, the Greta Garbo of Japan. That's Shishu Ryu, two great stars of the era. Let me give you a little context. This is a father and daughter. It's very common in Ozu films that families live together for long periods of time. They don't. Everybody lives under one roof. It's a more traditional society in mid 20th century, early mid 20th century, late 20th century too, a little bit later, 60s. But she is very happy with that arrangement. She doesn't want to be married off. She doesn't want to leave. She's happy in this, you know, it's almost like with a family. And so in this scene, the important thing is looking at their faces, the no play, the text of the no play about blossoms and nature. And this is acting. This is like Laurence Olivier, Meryl Streep level acting. This is like one of the grand themes to me of Ozu is objective. Ozu films everybody, literally every character's point of view, without ever really telling you what the hell he thinks, or without ever creating a subjectivity where the audience becomes only one character, right? And I think he's actually kind of unique in film history in that. And part of it is the way he does dialogue. Like you look at the faces, just the faces in the frame. And this scene is the best example of that. This is a scene about two people, a father and a daughter, who are utterly, they want different things out of life. They're having different emotions. Their emotions are opposed to each other. They're, it plays out in the scene, and you can see there's a third party. That's why I cheated a little bit. It's not really a two-character scene. There's other people. There's a theater. There's this third party that they see from afar and register the difference between him and her, the reaction to this woman. So I hope this is all. Apologize for the glare. Only the color remains. As it was back then. It's the law of impermanence. Very important. And as well as continuity. So it's impermanence and continuity both. Due time. The color moves. Here we go. Stuff's starting to happen. There's more going on in this scene than most action films ever made. That, you know, like Hollywood action pictures. Here we go.
Oh,
all the earth will be enlightened. Are we live? I think we lost internet connection there. I do apologize. I was not finding that. So that scene to me expresses something about human psychology, the universe, and just the way she looks down, and she's, she has expression on her face, the way he's beaming. So it's his being. He's looking straight ahead at this play, and he's just met this, he's a widower. This is very important. It's like he's a widower. His wife is, gone. And then, it's about getting on film or in a work of art, everybody's perspective, her perspective, his perspective, in this case, in the same frame. And I'm going to cut to the end of this film where there's a conversation between the two of them to give you a sense of a real two-person dialogue, if I may, to find it. Let's see here. Notice these shots and how I'm screwed up. To find these things here. Bear with me. So this is going to be a conversation about marriage, as I said, between the father and the daughter, Setsukahara and Shishu-ryu. And he gives her a lecture. Now, what's interesting about this lecture was a lot of things interesting about this lecture, but it's a lecture, but in Ozu, it's not really, it would be a mistake to think that it's Ozu lecturing you in the audience. Ozu himself never married. Ozu lived his entire life, I think he stayed with his mom, and he wrote scripts with Noga Oda, and they wrote all these films. And I think he has sympathy for some of it, of course, but it's about sort of the order of society and the continuity again of society. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So it's a, it's a very almost, you might say, transparent. Oh, here we go. This is the.
そうじゃないわ。
そうかい。それならいいんだけど。
I think this is the scene. Again, I get this is my first time doing something like this, so I'm a little bear with me. Like that. Again. It's a different relationship to objects and people. Objects and people, and what an object is, and what a person is, and what an environment is. At the end of well, many of his films, there's a kind of a comprehensive embrace. I would say it's an actual embrace of the whole universe or the whole social world, so that that building and these flowers, they're so meticulously, it's like they're painted, right, by Ozu. And look at this shot of them sleeping. Again, it's just a side by side. There's these scenes. They're at some kind of retreat, like kind of a, I don't know, a retreat. To get there's the base. So the idea is that it's almost it's almost as if you're looking at human beings from the point of, yes, the vase. For 60 years, film critics have been writing about that vase. Why is it there? Why does Ozu keep going back to it? Look at this rock garden. So yeah, the daughter agrees to marry. By the way, you never see the wedding and you never meet the groom. Again, this is all part of Ozu's design, about he's trying to redirect our attention to what he feels is more important than what we would ordinarily think of as important. It's a different thing. Now notice, remember the elderly couple in the very first shot when they were like putting things in a bag? Look what we have here. Same thing, putting things in a bag. Now it's father and daughter, different movies. Again, Ozu is always making the same still life over and over again. He's always making the same. They're all the same film in a way. He's remaking over and over the same plots and the same films, because he's about the quotidian. He's about sort of daily life and putting a spotlight on daily life and saying the things that, this is what matters in life, in the present moment, and it's really beautiful. And I'll try to play a little of this scene just to get a sense of his dialogue, how he shoots, how time flies.
でもとても楽しかった、京都。
よかったよ。まあ、贅沢言えばキリがないが、長いも一日行きたかったね。こんなことなら、今までにもっとお前と方々言っとくんだったよ。これでもお父さんとはおしまいだね。帰ると今度は忙しくなるのお前は。お父さん待ってるだろ。明日の休校もいい塩梅に座れるといいがね。まあ、どこ 恋も連れてってやんなかったけど、これから連れてってもらうさ。佐竹君に可愛がってもらうんだよ。どうした？どうしたんだい？
私、
うん？
このままお父さんといたいの。どこにも行きたくないの。お父さんとこうして一緒にいるだけでいいの。それだけで私楽しいの。お嫁に行ったってこれ以上の楽しさはないと思う。このままでいいの。
だけどお前、そんなこと言ったって。
いいえ、いいの。お父さん奥さんおもらいになったっていいのよ。やっぱり私お父さんのそばにいたいの。お父さんが好きなの。お父さんとこうしていることが。
Her greatest happiness is the status quo, you know, living in that house and the father. And he's going to give her the big lecture.
お嫁に行ったってこれ以上の幸せがあるとは私は思えない。
だけどそれは違う。そんなもんじゃないさ。お父さんはもう56だ。
He's a year older than me,
お
56.
父さんの人生はも
My
う
life is nearing its end. Life expectancy.
だけどお前たちはこれからだ。これからようやく新しい人生が始まるんだよ。つまり佐竹君と2人で作り上げていくんだよ。お父さんには関係のないことなんだよ。それが人間生活の歴史の順序というものなんだよ。それは結婚したって初めから幸せじゃないかもしれないさ。結婚していきなり幸せになれると思う考え方がむしろ間違ってるんだよ。幸せは待ってるもんじゃなくて、やっぱり自分たちで作り出すものなんだよ。結婚することが幸せなんじゃない。新しい夫婦が新しい一つの人生を作り上げていくことに幸せがあるんだよ。1年かかるか、2年かかるか、5年先か、10年先か、勤めて初めて幸せが生まれるんだよ。それでこそ初めて本当の夫婦になれるんだよ。お前のお母さんだって初めから幸せじゃなかったんだよ。長い間にはいろんなことがあった。台所の隅っこで泣いてるのをお父さん幾度も見たことがある。でもお母さんよく辛抱してくれたんだよ。お互いに信頼するんだ。お互いに愛情を持つんだ。お前がこれまでお父さんに持っててくれたようなあったかい心を今度は佐竹君に持つんだよ。いいね。そこにお前の本当に新しい幸せが生まれてくるんだよ。分かってくれるね。分かってくれたね。
わがまま言ってすいませんでした。
どうかい。分かってくれたかい。
ええ。本当にわがまま言って。
いや、分かってくれてよかったよ。お父さんもお前に。
Okay, that's a pretty much a great illustration of how he depicts character. I'm talking to you now, you just see my face, and the audience is in the place of the other party. So instead of having two people in a single shot, or the most common is over the shoulder, sort of, you know, all these Hollywood techniques and television techniques, he developed this thing of people, you know, people making the audience the other party, which, as I said, is a different, well, it does a number of things. It actually, it's at one and the same time is both more objective and detached, certainly more than cinema today. Cinema today is extremely intimate, partly because of the lightness of cameras. You know, you watch Euphoria, you watch, if you watch Euphoria or any, it doesn't matter, any A lot of things are made that the camera is so fluid, and it's always in point of view, 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 constant point of view. Very subjective, so that it's like almost, it's almost in a way, you know, it's almost like the feeling is that the filmmakers, you know, are trying to make up for a felt absence of points of view of certain people over time. It's almost like, well, now's our time kind of thing. That's reflected in the filmmaking. That's, again, not good, bad, or indifferent. Great sometimes. It ain't this. This is actually very, very opposite that. So when you get point of view, like you get Yasujiro, you're definitely getting, you know, you're looking into his soul, for crying out loud, right? But it's always balanced by environment, objects, you know, it's always contextual and it's always composed. And it's, you know, it's just a part of what makes Ozu so special. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, there's in Deleuze's book here. Hold on. He says that Ozu is a social critic. That, you know, Ozu's a radical. That he's critiquing the traditional Japanese family and the patriarchy. In fact, he says in one passage here that people have misunderstood Ozu as a conservative. That he's the biggest critic of tradition and oppression, right? That's Deleuze in cinema too. That's in here. I mean, on the other hand, you know, millions and millions of traditional middle-class Japanese people flocked to these films and saw maybe in them a confirmation. Then there's another point of view, my point of view, which is that's not really as important. What's important for Ozu is actually filming what's going on in reality and trying to sort of honor that reality and honor the points of view, the different points of view inside that singular reality. The best that he can with the tools that he has with cinema. And so that's why I think, you know, that's why I think it's so great. You know, there's a lot I could play for you. There's a lot I could show. I don't know. Again, it involves, this is the first time using this kind of setup. And, you know, Monday when I do another stream about Judy Blume, we're going to go back to the chair, my chair and the piano, and have more of a traditional, whatchamacallit. But let me try to play a little bit of this talking to the cameraman here of Ozu. I think we can do that. No. Bear with me here. Bear with me here. It's kind of, you know, what are you going to do, right? You're going to, you know, you're going to figure out what we're doing here. We could see the reflection of everything. We could see that, you know,
reside in the realm of the imagination.
So this is a travelogue film of Wim Wenders in 1983. Oh, here we go. We're going to see Yasujiro, I think, all grown up. We're going to see him in elderly. Here we go, yeah.
Cameras were clicking everywhere.
Shoot. Yeah, here he is.
まあテストを何回もやるんだけれど、
This is him as
まあものによっちゃ2、3回で
Yasujiro.
OK になることもあるん
I
で、
think he's in his 80s here.
それに本番を回して僕の場
That
合は
depended on how difficult the scene was. Many times, 2 or 3 rehearsals were enough, and then the scene was shot. But in his case, that, he had to admit, Ozu was rarely satisfied with the first or second take. With him, Ryo, things took quite a while. He remembered once rehearsing a scene more than 20 times and then shooting it more than 20 times as well. He himself didn't have any idea what he was doing wrong. He simply thought to himself, even a poor marksman will hit the bullseye if he just keeps blasting away long enough. Afterwards, Ozu merely asked him in all friendliness, Ryo, today is not one of your better days, is it? Or are you trying to test my patience? At any rate, with other actors, better actors than himself, Ozu was often satisfied with 1 or 2 takes. But working with him, Ryo, must have been difficult, and so he had to consider himself in the ranks of the less talented.
There's a
For Ryo, the relationship to Ozu was always that of a pupil to his teacher, or of a son to his father. Although Ozu was only a year older than he was, there was an enormous distance between the two of them in terms of intellect. And
okay. Let's try to. Here we go. Let's look at some of green tea over rice. I'm so sorry. Here we go.
そしたらもう何も言うなって言うのよ。
Dialogue.
でも私言いたかったの。そしたら分かってるっていきなり口塞がれちゃったの。へえ。それと見たらあの人、麺なんだいっぱい食べてんの。いや、泣いちゃいや男のくせにって言ったら、分かんないのか俺の気持ち。嬉しいんだ。お前と一緒になって今日が初めて。今日ほど嬉しかったことはなかったんだって言うの。私もバカだったわ。ごめんなさい。今日初めて分かるなんてって。わーわー泣いて謝っちゃったの。
Yeah, I'm kind of yeah, I'm kind of screwing up a little bit here. So I'm gonna think about this idea of I didn't want to really play. I didn't really get kind of scattered trying to do 100 things at once here, trying to cue things up. With time, I'll get better at this, I hope. So to create a style like that that's totally unique, totally singular, as I said, sui generis, and to have it influence so many people. So I'm trying to find something here that might surprise you. Hope this works. Here we go. Kind of like multimedia. This is from Paul Schrader's American Gigolo with Richard Gere. Schrader wrote this book on Bresson and Ozu. Ozu, Bresson, and Dreyer, Transcendental Style in the early 70s. And I just want to point out some things here that might interest you. Because it's completely, the saying about artists, great artists steal. Not this. I gotta get a thing here. No. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is it. There it is. He does that through the entire film.
Listen to the recording and repeat what.
He does that through the entire film.
Yeah, she liked.
I'm trying to find a good. Of course, that's very MTV. It's actually before MTV. It's very music and everything. That's not Ozu, but you know, you could take basically any subject matter and treat it, you know, and treat it like I give up. I'm just gonna throw in the towel. But here we go. Yeah, he does that through the whole film. Like, he has these shots, and so the idea of I'm going to show a character's environment, right, could mean different things. You can mean just showing you where somebody is. That is establishing shot. Or you could be like Ozu, where critics and scholars have suggested that it's almost a form of animism. And the Voss is looking at the characters, or the environment is looking like it's almost like everything's alive. The universe is alive kind of idea. Or it's like a still life, you know. That's not an establishing shot. That's like kind of the unity of all things, almost metaphysically, you know. That could be, even though we're talking about American Gigolo here, and it's not, it's trying to, here we go. Trying to look for something where we have, that's Lauren Hutton, by the way. This is a, you know, I mean,
I'm really not part of your problem. I'm certainly not the solution to your problem.
About money.
If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, you know, it doesn't really, I don't really want to get into a thing about it, but you could take any subject, even the subject of a male gigolo in Beverly Hills, you know, and treat it in any way you like. And in treating a subject in a certain way, you're transfiguring that subject.
Please, well,
You know, you're I'm going through this film just again, the camera moves a lot. This is not, Ozu doesn't move like this, you know. Schrader moves like this. This is like amazing. Just amazing.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful evening.
You know, just going through it and just wondering, you know, thinking aloud about, you know, trying to, it's purposely dark here. I just kind of sort of got kind of put some light on in here. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud now about the idea of treating a subject, and sort of a subject is a male gigolo, or a daughter's about to be married, or a married couple, and you can treat that subject almost any way. An artist could treat that subject almost any way the artist likes. And so through a certain particular specific treatment, you're actually giving your philosophy of the world, even though that philosophy of the world may not be your own. It might be the cultures. It might be the nations. It might be the era. It might be a town, a region, a religious tradition. I mean, you know, Schrader in his book on this, on Ozu, says that the films are Buddhist, and he says that Ozu is the most Buddhist filmmaker. I mean, Mu's on his gravestone, so tombstone is Mu. So, you know, maybe, you know, we can only there's a kind of limit to human discourse and what we talk about when we talk about things we love, things that we just like, things that we dislike, things we hate, all the way down. And so I just wanted to come and finish up talking about human relationship, human interaction, person A talking to person B. You can film them all sorts of ways. I think we need to do a part 2. This is 52 minutes. I think we're going on a bit of an hour. I will see you folks, hopefully, maybe on Monday when we do Judy Blume. Again, Judy Blume has a view of the world like Ozu does. It's not the view of a Japanese man in the 1950s. It's a view of a female writer in the 1970s and 80s. Different in New Jersey, not in Tokyo. It's just great. I mean, one of the amazing things about art and about aesthetics is that you can have everybody at the table, the imaginary table, place at the table, and they will give you their view, and we can learn something from that view. So I'm going to say goodbye and see you next week.